It's so hard to make the terrariums, but they're so pretty to look at. It took me an hour.
Hey guys, welcome to the channel. It's time to plan and make stuff. I have no idea how long this video is gonna be, so let's get into it. Before we talk about the spreads, I just want to say thank you for subscribing to the channel, and as a super late 100 subscriber thing, my next video is going to have a Q&A, so leave all your questions in the comments, then I'll see what I can answer next week. Okay, so this month's theme is plants. I bought a lot of plant stickers in the past, so I thought this would be a great way to use them. It was such a wide theme that I didn't really know what to make of it. It took me a while to decide on making it a greenhouse look. I knew that so many people online and so many YouTubers have done this design, but I wanted to put my own twist on it. For the cover, I sketched out my idea beforehand because this is going to take a lot of prep and was by far the longest part to film in this entire plan with me. I really like how the brown paper looked when I made my February map spread, so I thought adding brown paper would give it some accent colors. I actually have two different paper bags that I found that were different shades. One of them was the same kind of bag I used in February. It's really smooth and consistent and I really like the color, but then it's thick. I already bulked out my bullet journal during my April spreads and it's hard enough to close. The other type of paper was a normal paper bag that you usually get with groceries. It's a lighter color and has small bits of different colors in it since I'm guessing it's recycled. I didn't really have the colors I wanted for the soil of the plant, so I just used the paper bags as the soil. Wanted to try out what the soil would look like with the plant, so I started coloring one in. It's just a small cactus with a bush thing at the side. My marker set was actually very green, so it came in handy with the differences in color. I leave out a small part of the cactus for the lines. This thing is supposed to be one of those geometric terrariums that have the metal holding it together, so of course I'm using my gold paint to make the lines. It was only recently that I realized that I managed to shove in some metallic elements in almost all my current spreads. To help keep my lines cleaner, I used some plastic page flags to act as masking tape. My main concern was that if I used normal masking tape, the tape would stick to the paper too well and it might ruin the design. It might lift some parts of the paper or leave some adhesive. Ripping off the masking tape is also difficult sometimes, so by using the plastic flags, I can make sure that it's easy to remove and they won't pull on the paper. Even if it's plastic, I still feel like I can use the same page flags over and over again versus having the masking tape the entire area with a new piece of tape. So even if I'm painting, I don't even put the gold paint on the palette anymore. I want it to be as opaque as possible, and since I'm moving the page flags around a lot, it's a lot easier for me to just get the paint from the tube so it doesn't dry. I just add a few more details with a black pen, then I start coloring in the mushrooms. I already pre-cut the soil, so all I had to do was cut out the parts of the paper to fit the mushroom stems. The color of the stem is going to be a pretty constant issue for this spread. So for this one, I just made it pink for lack of a more accurate, lighter color. Sorry for blocking the camera with my head, but I just color in the tops of the mushrooms. I pre-drew the spot, so I just colored around it. To make a good contrast, I colored the pot a light blue. Quick trace around it with a black pen and I make the string that's supposed to be holding it up. There's another terrarium at the bottom of the page. I wanted a floral element but not really something all too common and not too complicated, and something that can exist alone without looking weird. So it took me a few tries to sketch it out, but I wanted to make a lotus-ish flower. Lotus-ish because it's not in water. My idea was that the lotus would be on top of the soil, so I traced the flower first before sticking on the soil. The shape of the terrarium also made it hard to cut out the right shape. I cut the circle a little too wide, but nothing some extra color in that spot can't fix. I outlined the shape with my pink vintage pen, then just colored the entire thing in. I come back in with the same set of page flags as before and paint the terrarium. This one is supposed to have another set of lines on the bottom by the soil, but I left that out because it's hard to do the lines when they're completely on the paper and you don't have any of your original sketch to guide you. The last one for this page is a Dangling Plant, which is a huge staple of plant spreads because they really make it look interesting to have stuff on the floor and then stuff hanging from the ceiling. My original sketch didn't really have a soil layer, so I just winged it and added one. I started planning out where the dangling plants were gonna go, then realized that the pot wasn't colored in yet, so I did that. Wanted to get an aqua teal color to connect to the green of the plants but also have a good combo with the purpley pink for the lotus and the red and blue of the mushrooms. To make the leaves of the plant, I flipped my spread around because it's a lot easier for me to draw it that way. I was basically making really small heart shapes all the way down the stem. It's not the most accurate of drawings, but it does the job well enough. They're so small I didn't want to color them in. While I finish up this page, I add strings to the hanging stuff. When there's a ring on top for the terrariums, I add a strip of black onto the ring, which connects the string to show that the string's wrapped around the ring. I'm not sure if you understand that, but it kind of made sense to me at the time. Wanting to keep this pretty minimalist and simple, I just write the month label in my own handwriting, just taller and thinner than I would usually write. For the other side, I forgot that I wanted to make the paper bag into a flower pot, so I just make the rectangles. To make it a bit more interesting, I have the lighter color at the top as the overhang and the darker color as the actual pot. Quick gluing, and that's pretty good. This is supposed to be a super simplified version of a snake plant, which means I just make stripes. I did what I can to lay it all out first before coloring it in to make sure there's enough color variation and it's just not one row, one color. I outline it with a dark green Vented before coloring it in to give enough of a separation from leaf to leaf but not as contrasty as using black. Since I would assume that a hanging full flower pot is harder than just hanging things with built-in hooks, I looked for some reference images to kind of influence the way that I drew my lines. The next one is the glass terrarium with the circle cut out in the middle. This was pretty simple as all I had to do was stick on the soil and draw the outlines. It was a bit tricky though to trim the soil to the right size. The plant in the middle is just a little shrub thing that meets in the middle without really that much stuff in it. Quick drawing, then just outline the terrarium shape. Next is the jar, which was actually the last one I sketched, so I was running out of container ideas that I would need to spend an hour painting in the outlines because I didn't want another terrarium, so I just picked a recycled jar, stuck my paper soil onto it and started with the contents. This is something like a cactus medley where I just tried to fill in the jar with cacti to help balance out the page because the snake plant was so tall. I did my best to use different shades of green so that they look different and you can tell them apart. I thought something was missing on the right side, so I made my tiny, uncolored vine plant drawing again. Then just added details with my black pen. Above that, we have a more witchy look with a potion bottle looking thing. I thought it would be cool to use mushrooms as a way to offset the green in the spread, but only using toadstools would be boring, so I wanted to add those cream beigey mushrooms too, so that the other mushrooms wouldn't look so out of place. I also wanted to bring a non-green element to this side of the spread. I actually used a marker that I bought specifically for the map spread because I thought it was a light brown marker, but it turned out a peachy orange, so I used that to make the mushroom cap. To make the stem, I started with a mild liner gray layered with brown, but I found it too cool toned, so I added a bit of that peach on the stem to pull it back to the warmer side. For some fun, I made some more of those viney things on the side. Traced the bottle, then colored in the cork. With a more cool tone brown, I make a way of hanging the bottle. I was thinking it was being hung by those leather-looking cords, so I didn't really mind if the lines were consistent or not. To help keep the cords looking separate, I outlined them with a black pen. I saved this terrarium for last because of the painting. It's actually really simple to draw, but I just didn't want to do the painting. It's a cartoony cactus with the arms, and I don't even put much detail in it. Most of the time for this one was just spent painting the gold terrarium. Having the metallic gold accents make the spread look so much better than using gold pens, but it's just really difficult to control and takes a lot more time. Then like the page beside it, I finish it off with making the strings that hang the plants. The next day, I'm still working on the cover. I had this cool idea to make the terrariums look like they're glass by adding a layer of clear tape over the parts that are supposed to be glass. It's best seen around the round terrarium because you can see that the plant itself is matte while the glass around it is shiny. I just use my cutter and my tape dispenser to achieve this. It's a really tedious job, but I really like the subtle effect it gives and the extra layer of detail, which is very, very me. The monthly is the same size as usual. I get this light washi to serve as my header, but I realize that the lightness doesn't really match the theme, so I get this darker reddish brown. I get the washi headers first so I can trace around them. I'm trying to set this spread apart from the map spread because they're both brown, so I outline the calendar with green to help keep the overall green theme and just use the brown as an accent color. Normal stuff happened where I make the lines at separate days of the month, erase the pencil lines, and now we move on to the design. I echo a bit of the April spread because I'm now going to write the month name on this smoother craft paper. Just so I'm able to use the other shade of paper here too, I make it into the soil for the design on the bottom. Since it's gonna cover the entire bottom of the page, it's a lot easier to trim the soil line, stick it on, then cut the excess off, rather than just trying to make it fit exactly by trimming it. I didn't want to fill this bottom part too much because I know that once my schedule is written here, it's gonna be real chaotic, so I just pick one of each of the plants on the cover. I really like the aesthetic of the toadstool, so I have that. Changed up the stem color again by using the pink from the cover, then layering the peach on top of it. I don't know, it still doesn't look right. Beside that is a cactus as a combo of the more circular growths and the arm. The little bush shrub thing, then I make a more slightly messed up version of the lotus that I made for the cover. With the brown pen, I make the day labels, and using a bright green pen, I write in the dates. I wanted to see how much space I actually have to decorate the side and how much it would match the spread, so instead of doing it off camera like I usually do, I actually make it this time. It's just the color codes for my subjects. I usually use the same highlighters, but I change out the pens now and again to match the general vibe of the spread. Since last month was really bright, I used my Muji pens, but now since it's back to being more subdued, I use my vintage pens except for the yellow because I think a brighter, more golden yellow might be needed. Time for the stickers. I have this small box of exclusively plant stickers from different packs, so I don't know where these are specifically from. Check out my hauls if you really want to find out what packaging to look out for. I just put 2 big leaves to take up space. I trim them sometimes to help them fit more into the spread and if they actually have really big uneven borders. Now on to the weeklies. I had to find this specific green highlighter. I wanted to get a lighter green than the normal mild liner green, but not citrus green, so yeah, I had to find very specific highlighters. To echo the monthly calendar, the day labels are brown and the numbers are green. I'm looking at my pen catalog to help me decide between the different shades of green that I have. I'm using the dark green pen to make the side box and the lighter shade of green for the titles. Then for the time labels, I use a super weird middle ground green Muji pen, then alternate that with brown to make it look less monochromatic. To bring in the craft paper again without making the top of the page thick, I make the small boxes out of paper so I can make the day and number labels there instead. I've had issues before where the stuff I put on Weekly start peeling because of the use, so instead of using the glue stick, I use a double-sided tape. It's a more regular shape anyway, so it's a lot easier to use tape. Quickly stick that onto the page, then I get the stickers I've picked out and just place them on. Was thinking of using a patterned washi tape, but it looked too cluttered for the very minimalist spread, so I kept it real subtle with just the stickers. Now, as I continue making the rest of the spread the same way, time for life updates. As usual, I still have class, but I've been up to some side projects aside from this channel, my school stuff, and my usual org work. Let's start with the smaller side job. On the day this video is going to be posted, I would have done a mini workshop/lecture about using Discord to my parents' branch of their company. They want to switch over to Discord and they wanted me to brief them about what it is and how to use it since I use it for org work. So that's gonna be a mild challenge, explaining how to use Discord to a room of 40-year-olds. I've tested it out on my parents and it's doable, just takes some time. There's just so many features and settings that they might get confused. The second, way bigger side project I had was something like a freelance coordinator type of thing. After my big org event 2 months ago, we were asked if someone wanted to do a smaller job for a similar event because it's a coding competition, but this time we're getting paid. I already had experience, so I took the job. I had to do volunteer coordination, which is basically being in charge of everyone who's gonna proctor the competition, then make a primer based on the rules they gave us. I really had to keep asking them questions to make sure that I'm understanding their rules correctly. They didn't really give me much to work with, so I kinda had to make additional points for the proctoring so the proctors won't get confused. It was about a week or 2 of work and I had to juggle that with my normal load. It was a 2-day event where most of what you did was just sit and go on a Google Meet call and stare at someone coding. Sometimes they'd startle you because they would start talking and their mics would be on the entire time. It just feels really awkward because you have to see the highs and lows of them coding and you're not allowed to talk to them, you can only watch. The only thing that keeps you away from it is the random chats on the volunteer Discord server. Of course, I'm the busy type, so I was watching lecture videos while proctoring while also doing something else, which you're going to see next week. Last for this section is an update on the election stuff I told you about last month. So yeah, I didn't win the election, but since there were still open positions, we had a special election. I was nominated for a different position, and if I took that, I basically had 2 days to make another set of slides about my plans if I get elected. So I didn't accept the nomination. It took me 2 weeks to think about and make my slides last time. No, I'm not subjecting myself to that again. So I just waited and only 1 position was filled through special elections, so positions are now going to be appointed. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say the position, but let's just say I got one. Then I'll just tell you guys more about it when I'm 100% sure I'm allowed to reveal what it is. Okay, back to the spreads. If you haven't seen it already, I added an extra sticker to the monthly because that's the only place right now I can really put my really cool gold foiled plant stickers. Would have wanted them in the weeklies too, but there was no way to fit them without covering up the labels. The habit tracker setup for this month is super simple. I just trim the thinner paper bag to make the soil, cut up some double-sided tape, then just stick them on. Then just make the days on the side for both pages. I needed to plan how to place 6 lines on the page with enough space in between them to make the leaves later on. So basically, this habit tracker is just really easy because you just draw a leaf in the row if you've done it. You've seen that I don't really make really detailed leaves, but it turns out pretty okay. There's also way less prep than usual since the habit tracker itself is going to be the decoration of the page. I make some teardrop shapes to be the seeds, then just write down the habits on the bottom of each seed to know what each stick is for. It didn't feel right to have the label on top of the habit tracker since the space is so small, so I just left it as it is. The exercise and sleep trackers are just the normal ones I've been making since January. I wrote the numbers in green and used the brown for the box. I really wanted to bring in the greenhouse feel, especially for this spread, so I really looked through my sticker sets to find out what would fit. I kinda had to force some in there, like the really big flower gold foil thing. It looks really cool, but it's really big. But overall, it's pretty good. I did my best to balance the use of the gold foil washi stickers with the plant stickers on white paper. I added a lot more of the small white stickers because I wanted to use the gold sparingly. That's it to the spreads, cut to the wallpaper. Yes, I actually managed to make a wallpaper this month, and I really wanted to bring in that greenhouse aspect that I wasn't able to do with my spreads. So I started by drawing the greenhouse itself so I knew where it was and how to balance it with the rest of the image. Perspective drawing was never really my forte, so drawing the greenhouse was a bit of a challenge, especially when making the lines. I put the grid on a separate layer so I could work on the contents without making my outline disappear. So for the first one I made was basically a potted version of the small bush that I made for the cover, but round. All I had to do was make one shape and alternate colors so that I wouldn't need to make an outline to separate them. Tried a background thing, like a wave, but it didn't seem right, so I resorted to making small bushes instead of covering the entire background. Since it is very whimsical and cartoony, it was easy enough to make flat bushes with circles and rectangles, just like making clouds. Then for dimension, I add circles to the edge of the bush in a darker color, then move that layer behind so it looks like there's more stuff behind that one bush. The next one is a hanging plant. I thought that I could make a scatter brush that would make the entire leafing process a lot faster, but then I just decided to use the same brush technique to make the top. I thought using more brushes would make the vines less tedious to make, but then I didn't like it, so I did that manually too. Hide the leaves and make some sort of hanging thingy for the pot. To bring in a lot more fun and whimsy, I actually make a giant toadstool. I know they don't look like this in real life, but I just thought it would look cool. As I've said before, I really like the look as an aesthetic, and I'm gonna make a giant one for this wallpaper. I finally got the color of the mushroom stem that I wanted because I could actually pick which color I wanted, then I just had to make the spots. I needed something that would help balance out the giant mushroom, so I wanted to make an equally giant tree. I just make the leaves like I make the small potted plant, so just making the leaves and then just putting them around in a circle. Then off to another potted plant which I call the bush on a stick, because that's basically what I made. We have the hanging thing, a small thing, 2 big things, and we needed a medium-sized thing. To match up with the cover page, I made the flower pot a nice light blue. So it just serves as like a middle ground between all the different elements. For the right side, I made another bush, but after making it, I realized that it would look way nicer scaled up to match the size of the tree. I was trying to figure out a small place to put in cacti because it would be weird to just have it on the floor, so I made the super simple bench that's going to hold smaller flower pots. So I made the super simple circle cactus in a pot. Then the more difficult one to do was the lotus-ish flower. I had to custom draw a bunch of it and mirror it to fit. It's also one of the few drawings here where I had to put in a built-in outline instead of using color differentials to help make it more cartoony and flat. When I added the grid back, the grid looked way too dense, so you could barely see the smaller parts, so I lessened the line so you could see more of it and still maintaining that greenhouse look. Last thing I had to do was add in the calendar. I wanted a very thin, classy, minimalist font so it doesn't detract from the greenhouse, and my reference photos also gave me that fancy garden feel, so I thought having a super simple but elegant font would match the look. So here's my wallpaper and spreads for the month. I hope you guys like the aesthetic for the month. With my schedule, I actually wasn't able to make a wallpaper for May even in my free time. Just wanted to remind you guys that I'll try to have a Q&A in my next video if people actually ask me questions, so leave your questions in the comments if you want them answered. If you found this video interesting, hit the like button, and if you want to see more videos like this from me, then hit the subscribe button and the bell to know when a new video is out. I try to upload every week, Monday nights at 8. I guess that's all for this video. Bye guys!